Hello and welcome to Series 6, Episode 3 of In Suspense. I'm Lauren North and my co-host today is the wonderful Nikki Smith, who's joining us today because Leslie's on holiday. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Lauren. Lovely to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for stepping in again, and we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So on our last episode, we chatted to the lovely Harriet Tice on the next book deal, When, Where and How, which has been very popular. And we've also had our second mini-sode out on self-editing, which is well worth a listen. And I got an email today to say that we have had over 6,500 downloads of In Suspense, which just feels pretty amazing. So they're not all
fantastic.
So yeah, a good one. But today we are chatting about carving out writing time, which I'm really looking forward to chatting to you about, Nikki, and to our guest. But before we dive in, Nikki, what have you been up to and how are you? Because last time you were on In Suspense, we were chatting about waiting for news and battling with synopsis writing. So what have you been up to this week?
I got the news that I was waiting for, which was all very good, but like most things in publishing, I'm afraid I'm not allowed to talk about it at the moment. I think that's because most of our lives are like that, aren't they?
Yes.
I'm going to have to keep that quiet for now, but I am currently in the process of editing, which is a bit of a battle, I think, as you're well aware. It's the kind of, I'm in the place where it feels all a bit like a jigsaw, and I'm trying to move pieces around and kind of put it all back together and hope that I end up with a whole puzzle at the end of it. So that's what I've been up to.
I'm sure lots of our listeners will sympathise with that. You just have to keep going, don't you? And hope that it's all going to come together in the end.
You do. But I know we've chatted about it. And I know, like you said, I think your brain does something where actually it kind of holds stuff in the background without you necessarily really realising it. But it's just kind of slugging through it and then waiting till the end and doing a great big read through and hope it all makes sense.
Yes, so, one page at a time, isn't
it? Indeed.
Yes. What have I been up to then? Let me think. I have been up to writing Lauren North's next book, so my thrillers, and I'm finding it really hard, and I think it's because it's quite a complicated story, as you know, Nikki, and it's got like lots of twists and lots of parts to it, and I'm writing it sort of out of the order with which you will read it, so it feels a bit of a slog at times, but I'm hoping that's just because it's a bit more complicated and not because it's not working, as we tell ourselves that, don't we, as much as we can.
Have you ever written any of your books like that before, completely out of order?
Bits and bobs, but not really. I think normally I've only ever written it out of order if I've slotted a storyline in afterwards, rather than just thinking this will go here and then I'll thread it all in. But it will be okay, or it won't be, I guess, is the case. And then I've had my page proofs through for The Ugly Truth, my March book, which I've been reading. And it also just feels like I've been really busy the last few weeks. I feel like I've been in London a lot, which is twice actually the last month, which feels like a lot, and just family stuff. I feel like I've not done as much work as I've wanted to, which I felt like a bit beat myself up about, I think, as we do.
It's been Easter holidays and stuff though as well, hasn't it? As kind of came in there last month, and I think that always throws routines completely out of the window. So
yeah, it's finding that time, carving out that time to write, isn't it? Which is what we're talking about.
Exactly. Well, that's a great segue into the topic there, Lauren.
It's normally Leslie that's very good at the segues, so trying to shoehorn one in on her behalf. But yeah, it is hard, I think, sometimes, especially like you say, I still feel like I'm recovering from the Easter holidays, and just popping up to London and having meetings and juggling stuff, and the weather's nice and you want to go on dog walks, and I find some days the day goes and it's 2:00 and I'm like, I've not done any work. So it's hard to find that time. What do you do? What's your routine?
I mean, ideally I'd love to say, I can drop my kids at school, come back and write, but I think that if you're in the situation where there's something else going on in your day, like I don't know, got a doctor's appointment, or you need to be somewhere for something else, that can throw the whole thing out, because by the time you've kind of been in and out of the car or on the train or whatever, then it's very, very difficult, I find, to get, a kind of great big chunk of work done. You don't feel that you've been very productive. But I just hope, your brain's kind of working on it subconsciously, and so when you actually come to write those words, they come out a bit faster. I don't know if that's true, but that's
I love that. We tell ourselves that. It's fine. I find if I leave the house when Lottie goes to school, who she's last to leave, and go straight up to the gym and just sit and work for a good 2 hours, I feel like I get more done than if I'm just at home once she's gone and like the washing needs putting on, and it's just on social media and stuff. I think you do just get dragged in. I had to delete Facebook from my phone this week because they've now started putting the TikTok reels on there. And I've just become obsessed. Like I'm like scrolling through and then half an hour's gone and I'm thinking, oh my God, where's that half an hour gone? So,
I'm like that on Twitter. It's fatal. If I open it in the morning, I can kind of turn around and think, oh my God, that's an hour. That's an hour just gone. It's awful. Yeah.
It is worrying. And it's about making the time to write. And I've said this a few times, but I definitely find, and I don't do it enough, that setting like a 20 or 25-minute timer and like not looking at your phone for that time and just focusing only on your book is the most productive way to write. I just don't do it enough, and I don't know why. I'm just an idiot.
It's too distracting. You see that screen flash and it's like, oh yes, what's that?
It's normally you lot chatting to me, isn't it? But then at the same time, you do need a break, don't you? You can't literally just sit there for 8 hours writing. You get fidgety, and actually being able to chat to your friends and looking on social media at other writers, it's the same as getting up and having a coffee in the kitchen, like in a business environment. It's no different, is it? So, you've got to find the balance, isn't it? I think actually we were just chatting, weren't we, before we've started recording, that actually I think today we've both found that it's the opposite, that it hasn't been carving out time to write, it's been carving out time for our lives in between writing and podcasting, because we're both like rushing to get the dinner on and get it out to the kids and be like, don't talk to me because I've got my podcast.
It's in the oven, just help yourself when you want it.
You're very good. I was like, kids, it's dinner. It's so easy to get distracted, and we are people who, both of us are really busy. We've obviously got 2 children each, and they're both that bit older, and I think you think, don't you, as they get older it's going to be less busy, and I think it is, in the sense that they don't require such an intense amount of our commitment with time, in the sense that our energy levels aren't drained as much, but it's the driving them places and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. I think there's still, a lot of mental load that you carry with children until I don't know when yet, just let me know when that happens. But there's a mental load.
I know. I mean, my eldest is 16 and I'm still there, so I think the driving gets worse, I can say that, because she now needs picking up Saturday night from a party or something, so that means that obviously I can't have a drink now on a Saturday night, that kind of thing, which is trickier, but yes, I mean, there's not that kind of, I don't think it's the same kind of, it's a different kind of emotional support.
It is, isn't it? It's not the play with me,
exactly. But it's still hard work.
It is, I mean, I'll be fine picking the kids up from parties so long as it's at 9:30, later than that. I mean, it's not later than that, is it? Because they're only young. And I'll be in my pajamas, obviously.
I do it in my PJs.
I think definitely. I can't imagine not. I can imagine I'll be doing rock paper scissors with my husband on who has to
exactly. Yes, find lots of friends that you can lift share with. That's
a good idea. So I mean, we're both busy, and we've got other things going on in our lives as well as writing and families, but our guest today has got a career and the writing and the family, so I'm really interested to hear how they balance it as well, but because I think that's going to be quite interesting, and it is the lovely Amen Alonge who's on to the show today.
So welcome, Amen, to In Suspense, and before we dive into our questions, I thought I'd read your bio for the benefit of all our listeners and watchers. So Amen Alonge was born in Lagos and moved to London as a teenager. He took a master's degree at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh and then worked as an engineer. He went on to take a screenwriting course at the London Film Academy, and for a while ran the family business, which was a sports media company that owns the global licensing rights for the Nigerian Football League. And he's changed careers since then and is currently training to become a solicitor. And he lives in London with his wife and their son. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Not at all. And can you maybe start by telling our listeners a little bit about your book, A Good Day to Die, and what it's about?
So A Good Day to Die is a thriller. It sort of focuses on a nameless character, although he is called Pretty Boy by some, not to his face, who returns back to London after 10 years in self-exile for vengeance. But his return instantly sets off a chain of events that makes the hunter the hunted, but he would do whatever he can, whatever he has to get his vengeance or die trying. So that's just it. And it all takes place in one day. A good day to die.
Yes.
Brilliant. I mean, and I thought the one day element added a real speed to the book as well, which was brilliant. And I really enjoyed it. It's a very gritty thriller with some shocking scenes. It was like very early on as well in the book. So how did you go about writing the violence? Because we were chatting about sex in thrillers quite recently, with the whole perhaps less is more, or like how do you quite get that balance? How much information is too much? And I sort of wondered, is it the same, do you think, with violence in how much detail to go into?
Yeah, I suppose it is, but you know, like it could depend on, I guess, the character or how important you want the violence to be. Do you want the reader to live every second of the pain? You know what I mean? Or it's just like, for lack of a better phrase, it's just cannon fodder. The main character is going through something, and so you don't need to waste time on that. That becomes a bit, you're enjoying it too much at that point. But if it's like something very important, like for instance, like a torture scene, he gets tortured at some point. And so for that, because you're in his head, you have to feel everything. You have to feel every emotion. You have to feel everything. And also because of it's sort of said, there are two different narratives. There's his narrative, and then there's a third person. And he is very, he's very particular. So there's he wouldn't describe as much as the eye of God will. So I do write violence differently in both in the same book, but differently. So the third person enjoys, like my narrator enjoys the whole, he sort of enjoys the word, sort of narrating it, tongue in cheek. So he would tell you as much, he might tell you too much on occasion, just to prod you a little bit. But Pretty Boy is a bit like, okay, this happened and this happened, and we're moving on to the next.
I love that. And I don't think I picked it up necessarily as I was reading it, but as you've said that to me now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's true. Actually, that's really, that's such a good point about how the different characters perceive it. And what do you think violence adds to thrillers? I mean, it's a great shock factor for one thing. But do you think it helps with the pace? Or do you think it was more about trying to capture the underbelly of the London gangster scene?
Yes, I think for me, with the violence, I didn't really think of it as, shock factor or anything. I just thought the what is happening, the authenticity of it, requires, because when the stakes get higher, what people are willing to do to each other, it does increase. And I guess to a certain extent, like you mentioned, you can sort of write enough of it and not write, but because it's through him and because everything is sort of descending on him, that's, I guess, the violence is going to be almost like continuous. And yes, I guess the one in the first chapter, which, I think I just wanted you to know what world you were in from there, so things happen. You know what I mean? It
felt very real when you read it. It really did. It was really kind of, I was like, oh my God, I think I know where this is going to go, kind of thing. And it's very good. Very good.
I was very much like, oh, okay then, right, this is what we're going to have, is it?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, brilliant. Very, very well written, I thought.
Thank you.
So A Good Day to Die, it's the first, isn't it, in Trilogy. So can you tell us a bit about that? Did you plan out everything, or have you planned out everything before you started writing?
I started writing the first one without planning three, but then I sort of got to a point where I thought, this is going to be like, a Bible, and you sort of like, we have sort of have to split it. And the sort of way I sort of took it at that point was, to do the whole A Good Day to Die happens in one day. The second book happens in a month that has A Good Day to Die in it. So it's like it just keeps, and the third one is in a year that has the month and the day in it. So it just keeps,
Wow.
so it just keeps opening up, and it sort of moves up in the level of crime, because this one, Pretty Boy is almost like a soldier, you'd say.
Yeah.
He's come for his own personal gripe, but what he does affects people on a different level. And it's just how it all affects. And because it's set in 2012, and then which doesn't really show in the first one. So there's the backdrop of the Olympics and what London has to do to clean up the streets in the Olympics, and how that all, because when he comes, like, that fragile balance of power and peace has been going on, it sort of shatters, and then it becomes what the politicians have to do and what everybody's. So that's what meets at the third one, and that's why the larger scope is necessary for that. And I guess there's also the sort of social dynamic of it, in that this first one, Pretty Boy is black, but the way I see it, like, the higher up you go, the less black it is.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Okay.
Yeah.
so just seeing that, and sort of him reluctantly, because he doesn't want to, at least he thinks he doesn't want to, he reluctantly just moving up those levels, just gradually, and then so that's sort of how I have it. And so I finished the second one.
Wow.
And it was, I really like it, but I guess I am going to say that all the time. So I really like it.
Difficult. Did you find it difficult to do that kind of expanded view, as you say, still keeping the original, but kind of going out? I've never heard of anyone doing that before.
No,
actually, in a trilogy. Normally, it's just follow on. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Not particularly, because when I made the decision to write in 3, then I sort of built the word in my head, and that's sort of the way it is. So, like, all of them are sort of living beings, they're real in my head, because even coming at the beginning when I was talking to Anthony, my agent, and he was like, "Oh, I want this to change, I want that to change," and I was like, "Okay." Do you know what I mean? And he was like, "Would it, affect?" I'm like, "Yeah, it would, but it's a real world, so yes, it would affect, but we're just going to work with it. The characters are going to work with it. If the decisions that work now, the true line of the actual story might change eventually, because of because even in the second one, characters make some certain decisions that I'm like, okay, this doesn't really work with the plan, particularly, So, but I just have to go in, because this is actually more interesting. But then I know where I'm going to get to. You know what I mean? I know where I'm going to get to. I don't have it, bang on, but I know where I'm going to get to. So it's like, it doesn't really matter, like, even now, I'm sure I'm going to get notes and, do this, don't do that. And yeah, I'm good with it, because it doesn't change the essence of the book, the world of the book that I've built. And I sort of love all the characters. So if some have to go and some have to get more shine, and some, it doesn't matter to me. So yeah.
And how quickly are you going to dive into writing book 3? Will you wait for your structural edits to come back for book 2 and then start writing book 3?
Yes. I would absolutely do that, because again, this is a conversation we had after the first one, because there are things that changed based on the edits from Anthony and then Steph, my editor, that changed the second book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, okay, but I was fine with it, because I could see, because again, like, they are really good at what they do, and yes, I have my story, but I'm not as attached to it. I do understand that they're trying to make it a better book, so it's just like, listen, okay, if I disagree,
there.
I know. If I
Yeah.
disagree with a point, I would try and argue it to an extent of like, okay, so you understand exactly what I'm trying to do, and if you understand what I'm trying to do, but you still think, okay, this other way is better, okay, but I would like push it, like, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what you're doing. So yeah, so I would wait for the structural edits, because I don't want to build a whole thing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And on that subject, what advice would you give to anybody who's considering writing a trilogy?
People do it differently, because I've spoken to all the authors, and they sort of do it, but I plan, but it maybe because I did engineering, all through university, and you have to draw and, chart everything and all. So I plan, and plans are liable to change, but just plan. You know what I mean? Have, know what you want to get, or have like have something that is different about each book. It's similar, but this first one is about vengeance, the second one is about something else, and the third one is about something else. But it all relates. So it doesn't really matter how the characters change or whatnot. You know what you're trying to come across in the book. Yes, it's fiction, but we are still trying to put something across with the book. At least I'm trying to. So yes, some characters change the vantage point. But for me, I think just try and lay it out as much as you can. And another thing, so I did a screenwriting course and I was a screenwriter for a bit. And for that, you do write character Bibles and all that stuff. So I do understand that not everybody's going to do it the way I have, because that's a bit like, okay. But I do that, and it's not as detailed as it used to be, thank God for that. But, I do plan as much as possible, but I plan, but also being aware that my version of the story is not the final. It might not even be the best. You know what I mean? So just plan, have it. And again, I think if people see your vision, they're more like, whatever notes, I'm more likely to fit your vision in with it. That, okay, I know what you're trying to go to. So yeah, okay, yeah, let's, so everybody's working around the puzzle with you. So my advice would be the plan, but it doesn't really work for everybody.
I have to plan. I'm a
talking
planner.
to two planners.
Oh, good.
Fine, don't worry.
Good company, yeah.
Yeah, good planners. Yes,
We
I'm
are.
happy with my Excel spreadsheets, and people are thinking, "What? You're mad?" But no.
I know. It's like, nope, this is what I do. But it works for me.
So our topic today is carving out time to write, which we thought was particularly apt for you, because not only are you an author with a family and young children and a young son, but you're also training to be a solicitor.
Yes.
As well. So most authors, I think I know, are always saying they would love to kind of dump their day job and just write. But it sounds like if you're training, that this is something that you want to do alongside writing. What makes you want to do both? And do you think you can do it?
I'll answer the last question first. I think I can do it because I'm doing it. So I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep pushing. And I think it's also the case of I sort of lived many lives in between, because raised by an African Nigerian, to be more precise, father who, he decides what you do with your life. And he decided I was going to be an engineer, and I didn't have a choice in it. And I sort of I ran through school, I did a master's, I graduated when I was 20, and then into the world of, okay, you're going to become a petroleum engineer. And then I worked for like 6 days and I thought, okay, this is not the life I want. And at some point you need to make your decisions. So I quit, and then I came back to London because this was in Aberdeen. And then I just took a while to find myself, and I did a bunch of stuff that I really, really enjoyed, but I haven't enjoyed any of them as much as I enjoy being a lawyer and a writer. So I'm not going to give them up.
Wow.
So I'm going to just keep going for as long as possible. And I think, my firm is quite good in that I know quite a few lawyers work part-time, whether 2 days. I was talking to somebody in a different team today, and there are 2 lawyers in a team that are men that work part-time 2 days a week, and that's the first one I've heard. Usually it's women that do the childcare stuff, and but that's something, if the writing picks up as much as I hope it does, and I need more time, then I'm sure I'll talk to them, even if it's just for half a year. Like, I need to do, because I need to finish this book or those books. And they're very supportive in a sort of, because I don't, I wouldn't say shy about the book, but I don't talk about it much. So, you know what I mean? So, they've offered to, blast it as much as they can around the firm. But, I don't want that to be, the introduction, because it's almost like, that I become, I want people to know me for the work I do a little bit, and then find out, you're also a writer. Oh, wow. Okay.
It sounds like you wear your 2 different hats then, very much so.
Yeah. So I enjoy both, and I will continue doing both for as much as I can. And and also, my wife is, awesome, so
Wives are awesome.
I know.
Always. Yeah.
I know. So it's and people ask me this question at work, even people that don't know I write as well. They're like, oh, how are you training with, a 14-month-old? And I want to say, and I write too, but I just leave it. I'm like, well, you know what I mean? Yeah, I just do it because again, that, inherently, I guess, comes with it. I love my family as well. So everything I do, I love. So it's not like, oh, I have to do this now. No, it's like, oh, I get, it's time for this now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if the boy's going to sleep, I have to write, you know what I mean? And Shima, my wife, and she wants to watch, a program that we're watching on Netflix. She's like, well, I get to watch my own programs and it's on in the background and I'm writing and complaining about it. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that's lame. So, I'm still in the room, you know what I mean? Kind of thing like, oh, that wouldn't, they won't let me get away with that. So, I'm still there, I'm present. And like, I'm at my work station at the moment and, it's in the living room, which is, thankfully it's not, I guess I could have put it in one of the bedrooms, but it's in the living room. So even while I'm working, no, my son is, running about, crawling about, trying to grab you, and it's all part of it. And then, luckily for us, we get this earphones that you can't hear anything else because he's like there, just
that's brilliant,
and you can't hear anything, and it's fantastic. So you get work calls and everything. Again, it's all just working for me at the moment.
Yeah.
So
is there something in particular that you think you get from both? Like, does it satisfy different kind of parts of your brain, if you like, I guess?
Yes, different parts of my brain and different parts of, I guess, my upbringing and just what I was raised to think like, which even now I realize is a bit stupid. But, I think when I was a kid, I told my dad I want to be an actor. And it's just like, whatever. I mean, yeah, whatever, mate. Sit down. Because, so it's like, I've always thought, and, I've always thought I was intelligent, but I thought the only way to prove your intelligence is by being an engineer or a lawyer or, and all the other stuff. So it's like, I realized somewhere down the line that, oh, I am very good at being a lawyer, but I am also good at being a writer. And it's just like, wow, okay, let's do it. Let's see how far it can go. And so at each thing, I'm trying to push as much as possible, be as successful as much as possible. And to be fair, as I've said, even at work, I don't talk about being a writer because, because I don't want people to look at me differently or just think, they meet you and they just think, oh, him, okay. It's like I am here, I am a junior at the moment, I am a trainee. So treat me like a trainee, don't treat me like, give me as much work as you think I need to do to train. And, so it does, and again, it makes my dad incredibly happy that, my law firm does work for the Queen. So it's like, oh my God. You're like, oh my God, my son does work. Not me, Dad. No, not me.
Oh,
Not me. Other people, not me. Kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. And I know what you mean about telling people you're an author, because it does just open up this sort of a million questions, because I think it's such a unique thing to do. And it is instantly like, oh, well, I have read your books and where can I find them? And wow, isn't that interesting? And what kind of books do you write? And sometimes, if someone says I'm an accountant, it's full stop, isn't it? Like, oh, okay, that's what you do. And I think sometimes you do just feel a bit like, oh, if I'm going to tell people this, then I need to be prepared to then also explain a lot more. And then I always feel like, then I've suddenly got this spotlight on me and I don't really like it. So I'm always a bit like, oh, I'm a writer, and just try and move on.
Yeah, just move on, honestly. And they're like, wait, what did you say? I'm like,
author.
Yeah, that. I know.
Very much so. Now, you've mentioned a little bit about when you're writing, but could you talk us about a little bit more then about your writing routine, how you manage your time and where and when you find the time to write?
So usually, so I get, it depends on how busy work is, to be fair. So today I went to the office. I only go to the office 2 times a week. But so what I get back probably 7-ish, 8-ish or whatever. And then put Noah to bed. And then we eat. And so in between that gap of probably like 9 to probably like 10:30, because adults now, we don't stay up late. You know what I mean? Yeah, so
you're up later than I am.
I was going to say 10:30 is late.
Oh my God. I have like a thing on my phone that tells me, okay, it's time to go to bed. We're shutting your phone off. So I had to do that. So in between that time, I do sort of write, but it's a bit different for me in that, luckily for me, the actual typing at that stage, I already know what is happening. Okay. So all through the day, I'm writing in my head.
Yes.
All through the day,
yeah.
I'm writing in my head. All through the day, I am changing dialogue that I've written the night before. I don't like that. I'm good. So when I'm sitting down and actually just typing it out, I already know what I'm doing. I already know where I'm going and all that stuff. So I do that, and then on the weekends, I do like give like chunks. Wake up at when Noah wakes you up, whatever time that is, anytime from 6, it's like, all right, here we go. Day starts. So after like you do your stuff, gym, whatever, I'll give a block of like maybe 4 hours, and I'll sit down and I'll write, and I'll do the same thing on Sunday. So it's like during the week, if I have the time, if I'm I guess I wouldn't say tired because I don't particularly get tired, but if I have time, I would do
Yeah.
it. I'll do like an hour and a bit, but in the weekends. But when I was facing the deadline, I took I think a week or 2 weeks off. I think I took a week off, and I just sat at the computer all hours. Yeah, I was like,
Wow.
oh my God, you know what I mean? And it was, I can remember like going to the gym afterwards, like, right. And I think, do I have COVID? Because I am so tired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then you just have to push through. And then I did like that, I just knew, okay, I have to do this in terms of not the gym. Like I have to stand up and leave for a bit. And no matter how exhausted I am, I have things to do, like, and then come back, and I'm always happy that I've done it. So it's like it's a sort of, I've sort of gotten to a balance in a sort of way that I don't know how it would be if I have to write 2 books a year, but that's a good problem to have at the end of the year. Because if you want to
It
write
is,
two
yeah.
books, then things are going really well. So, but for now, 1 book a year,
Yeah.
I think I can handle it.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying earlier, weren't we, Nikki, about how you can't sit at your desk for 8 hours a day. Like you do have to get up, don't you? And you can feel really bleary, and even though it's something you love doing and you're in this world, it's still
I think it's
so
quite
draining.
intense, isn't it?
Yeah,
As
it is
well, that's
intense,
when you're actually doing it, as you say, it's you are these different characters, you're in their world, and it is a very intense experience. And I don't think you can do that for too long, otherwise the kind of dialogue, as you say, falls apart and things like that, and it goes a bit funny. So
I agree. And I sort of did that. I did that the first day. I took the 2 weeks off, or 10 days, and I sort of wrote all the way. And then when I slept, I went back to it. I just changed a lot of the chunk when I realized I was tired, and I could tell I was tired. But I'm like, I know, because again, I already know it here. I just thought this is a typing job. I think I wanted to get to 10,000 words a day. I'm like, come on, you can do this. And then I was like, when I went back to, I'm like, oh no, all this comes out. So yeah, I agree. You do need to, I'm the cook. I cook everything. So I do get that natural get up to go cook, time for us to eat sort of thing. So, it's, it's, again, I've gone into a balance, and it sort of naturally, not thinking, okay, this is what I am going to do. Just this is what I am doing. So yeah.
Do you ever feel like, because you obviously say you don't get that tired, and you've got such a great energy about you, and do you ever feel like, I really don't want to sit at my computer tonight and write, but I know I have to? Do you ever get that feeling? And then do you push yourself, or do you have a night off?
I do have that feeling. I have the feel, it's a bit, there's some certain scenes in the book, I guess, screenwriting. There's some certain passages, in the book that, that I know are going to be daunting. Like there's a particular, because even when there's a set piece in the second book that I thought about it for a while, and I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be so awesome. But when it came to writing, I was dreading it. So, when I knew I was approaching, I sort of slowed the pace down. And then when it came time, like I was doing everything else apart from doing that.
Yeah.
I was doing everything. And even my wife is like,
cooking, washing. Yeah.
Why are you sitting down on the couch with watching, like, I don't you have to write? Finish it already. I'm like, yeah, don't worry. Not today. Like, okay. So with that, I think that was just like, oh my God, I don't even know how I'm gonna start it. But then you sit down and you start it, and then you're like, oh wow, when you read it back, you're like, oh yeah, I actually got everything I wanted on the page. And I love that feeling. But yeah, definitely I go through the point where, oh, I don't want to do this.
Okay, I feel a bit more reassured now.
Yeah, I know,
I mean,
I
I cleaned out the guinea pigs today. That's how much I didn't want to write.
I know. Like, oh my God. I don't want to do
Washing and ironing. That's
Yeah.
what, I was going, right, I'd rather do the ironing than sit down at my laptop again.
Yeah,
or I cook a meal
definitely.
that lasts 4 hours and it's like, are you really gonna write? Yeah, when I'm done cooking it. But it's like I'm looking at the timer, it says, I'm like, yeah, don't worry. But it does.
Yes. Yeah. Now, you mentioned your screenwriting course. So was your book, Was A Good Day to Die, originally going to be a screenplay? And is that something that you're kind of looking to do as well as writing novels, or not?
It wasn't intended to, because it was like like when I decided, because sort of I'll just talk about how this whole thing worked a little bit. So this sort of how the law firms, well, not all, just the sort of law firms that thankfully I have a job at, they give you the job 2 years ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. So they give you the 2 years ahead, and I was going to go to law school in one of those years. So I sort of told myself in the other year I'm going to write this. So I was thinking, okay, because I'm a weirdo and that I have quite a few ideas, like in my head. I was like, so it was like, which one do I? So it's, I've always had these ideas, but I sort of knew this would be difficult to write as a screenplay because of how it's set in one day and it sort of opens up. And, so I just thought, if I'm going to write it, I'm going to just go, as hard as, as I can as a novel. If it's going to ever go be a screenplay, I think I would want to be removed from that process, because they're going to have to switch certain things. They're going to have to, because of the way it's laid out, because I don't know how you're going to do a television show or a series and do the whole thing in one day. I guess it would be original, and then do it another thing. And, I guess it would be original like that, but I haven't seen it done. So it's like, I don't mind. I don't, it's not, if they wanted me to help work on it, then that I suppose that would affect my day job and all this. But it's like, if anybody ever options it, go ahead, do what you want to do with it. It's not, I don't want, even though I worked in that world, but even because I worked in that world, I do understand the pride people have. They're going to want to produce something good. I understand when things come out, not everything is good. It all goes through that whole thing, but that it doesn't necessarily mean that if I'm attached to it, it'll be awesome. I'm sure it'll be awesome for me, because it'll be my vision of how I want it to be on screen. But so no, not particularly. But it's a question that could arise again in 10 years if this is I'm a full-time writer or whatever, and like I'll try a screenplay because I know how to do it. I suppose I did go to school for it. So
would you ever want to write something for the screen, specifically for the screen?
Yes,
because it's very visual. The book is very visual. You can kind of really get that.
I sort of agree with that, but again, it depends. I wouldn't do it for free anymore. That's for sure. You know what I mean? I wouldn't just sit down like, I'm going to write a screenplay and trying it. No, I would go through the route that's working for me. I'll write a book, it's maybe because I guess when I was working as a screenwriter, your ideas have to be constrained a little bit because of budget, because of cast consideration and all that stuff. But you can go as you can have as many characters as you want. You can have as many locations as you want. You can do whatever you want. You can even, I guess Fast and Furious took them to the moon. So, but outside that, you can control the world a bit yourself. Although, if you go overboard, that sort of might make your thing a bit hard to option if you're really keen on that. But I think if the story is good and people enjoy it and people like it, somebody will make a way to make it work, So I'm just going to write the best novel I can each time. And then, whatever happens on the back end happens.
I think that's such a sensible way to be about it, isn't it? I think obviously I've never had anything optioned, but I'd like to think that I'd be a lot like you and I wouldn't be very precious about it. I think that I've done my job. Someone else who's qualified can go and do the other bit. Who knows what I'll actually be like. Now, where does reading slot into your already packed out days? Have you got any books that you'd like to recommend to us?
Absolutely. So, okay, this is cheating. At least my wife says it's cheating because audiobooks, it's fantastic. So I haven't the last like paper book I was able to read was and I do recommend this. It was Man in the Street.
Oh yeah,
And
Trevor Wood's
Oh, yes.
amazing,
Trevor
isn't he? Yeah.
yes,
Trevor is fabulous. Yeah.
So
Audiobooks are not cheating. I listen to them
No.
constantly.
okay,
Love
good.
them.
Then I'll say that to my wife because she's
Yes.
like, oh, you know.
I would
So
not get half as much books, go through as many books if I couldn't.
I know. So I read Trevor's, and then so I've read a series of audiobooks since then. But the one I'm currently reading was a recommendation from you, Lauren, is The Enemy's Closer or a Park.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, so I am doing that, and also I'm twinning that with David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell. So I recommend all those books.
Oh, brilliant. There's some great recommendations. Oh, Rob Parker will be tickled pink.
Yeah, he
by
will.
that.
He will. Yeah.
Yes. And what about you, Nikki? Have you got any books you've been
so I've
meaning
got
to recommend?
Yeah, I've got a couple to recommend. So first of all,
Oh,
you may
that
well
just for anybody
recognise that one.
listening.
I can just about, there we go. Your
Yes,
name.
that's it. Perfect.
There we go.
Nikki is holding up my proof of all the Wicked
I'm
games.
very, very honoured to get a kind of a proof copy of Lauren's next book, which is out in September, called All the Wicked Games. And I was actually very lucky to read a very, very early copy of this. So it's been a fascinating reading it again. I love this bit because you kind of read something at the beginning and then, after it's now gone through all the kind of editing process.
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of halfway through it at the moment and I'm loving it.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you.
So I definitely recommend that one. And also, now I don't usually read historical fiction. I tend to read all kind of crime and thriller. But this is called That Bone-Setter Woman by Fran Quinn. And she wrote one called The Smallest Man last year, which I read as well. And but yeah, it's about a character called Endurance Proudfoot. It's set in Georgian London, which I didn't really know anything about, and I loved it. I thought it was fabulous, so I'd recommend that one as well. How about you, Lauren?
Well, that's so interesting because I've just started getting into a bit of historical because I've listened to Alison Weir's all of the wives for the Henry VIII ones, and they're really good. They're like 30 hours long. So I'm just like, I love them. But I would like to recommend Callie Taylor's The Guilty Couple, which I think I said I was reading on the last one podcast, but I have finished and I loved it. It was so twisty with sort of who do you believe and what's really going on,
She always writes brilliant books, doesn't she?
And such a great hook. What would you do if your husband framed you for murder, and not just any murder but his murder, which I really, really love the premise of. And then I've just finished last week. I was really lucky to get an early proof of What I Hid From You by Helene Kist, which is absolutely sensational. It's such a great cover, and it's so what did I think of it? It was brilliant. It had all the elements of a thriller that you want, but it also portrayed women and motherhood and working women and relationships so aptly throughout as well. So I thought it just covered those two bases so well. You had that tension on every page, but you also felt like you've been in those shoes as well so much. So an absolute recommendation from me. So yes, but now it's time for our fun question, which Nikki very well came up with for us for this one. So your book is a very gritty thriller with Pretty Boy, the protagonist, and a cast of villains. And we wondered, if you were the protagonist in one of your own novels and you could have a superpower, what would it be?
The ability to read people's minds.
That's a good one. That's a very good one. Yes.
What about yours?
What about you, Nikki?
Okay, well, I think it was after reading the first chapter of A Good Day to Die, actually. I thought, right, well, I'd want the superpower where anything that happens to you, wound-wise, if you're injured, you can heal it immediately.
Oh, okay.
I like that one as well. I think that's very clever.
We're gonna okay. I'll have something to say about that, but don't worry, bro.
Oh, go on, say it now.
No, the other idea that I wanted to right is sort of like a supernatural sort of thing set in London and Nigeria about somebody that has a power similar to that.
Ooh.
Yes, I know.
I can imagine your editor listening to this being like, no, stick with the gritty thrillers.
I know. No, I tried to pitch it to Anthony, and he was yeah, sure. Yeah, after you're done,
Sometime
After
in
you've
the
done
future,
10.
yeah. In the future,
we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
How about you, Lauren? What's your superpower?
Well, actually, this is much about the topic as well, about carving out time for write. I always really liked it. I don't know if you've ever watched Saved by the Bell with Zach. It's a classic childhood thing to watch. And so every now and again, he would like pull out this remote and just pause everything and just talk to the camera. It's just a little gimmicky thing, but I think it would be amazing to be able to just pause time and pause the day. And so everything around you just stopped. It stayed on 2 o'clock and you just got to have like a bit of a breather and got a bit more time to do everything, had a little sleep and then like play again. I just think would be such a great superpower.
I agree.
Yes, that would be mine.
I think we could all do with a bit of that, quite frankly, most days.
Yeah.
Yes, just to fit in that kind of
Sleep.
extra hours.
Sleep.
Yeah,
exactly. Sleep for me. Fit and sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep.
So sadly, I think that's probably all we've got time for today. So thank you so much, Amen, for joining us and answering all the questions. And A Good Day to Die is now out in hardback. So if you've enjoyed our chat today, do have a read.
Yes, yes, I very much enjoyed it. Yes, thank you, Amen. In our next episode, we're chatting to Sam Holland about her stunning debut novel, The Echo Man, which I'm currently reading and I'm really enjoying. We'll be chatting to her about serial killers in thrillers and her journey to publication in a post-pandemic world. And as you can tell, we just obviously haven't agreed quite what the topic is yet. It'd be something about that. But for now, we'll say goodbye from Amen. We'll say goodbye from Nikki, and it's goodbye from me. So goodbye.
Bye.